Good afternoon. I just got back from a little fishing trip, a cold fishing trip down at Bennett Springs. And we caught a few fish, but mainly we had a lot of time to talk about a lot of things. I was with Bruce, and one of those things we talked about was fly tying. And he decided he wanted to type some redfish flies, so I'm be sending him some videos. I thought I had done a video of this particular fly we're going to tie today, but apparently I did not. I just thought I did, but didn't follow through with that. This is a fly that is, oh, and by the way, it's snowing like the dickens outside, so it's a really good day for tying flies. This is a fly that's very similar to one that we've talked about before and used. This is the Hopedale crab, and it's tied with craft fur for the tail and other materials that hopefully simulate a crab, and it rides upside down because of the dumbbell eyes. And this was a really effective pattern for us last year in Mississippi. We caught a lot of redfish on this particular fly. But I came up with a couple of modifications to this and that caused it to look like this. It's rather subtle, but I used, rather than the craft fur, I used some saddle hackles for the tail, and I used a different type of flash for the body, or the collar at the base of the tail, and I will talk about those materials as we go through it. But other than that, it's really similar to the Hopedale crab. The reason I wanted to do this is because I like the fact that the saddle hackles give it a longer tail, and also the saddle hackles are splayed out from the hook so that it gives you more wiggle, more movement in the fly, hopefully gets the fish's attention. And also it's got maybe quite a bit more sparkle due to this collar that we'll talk about, that we'll put on. I'm going to tie this in a 1/0. You can do smaller, larger, but the 1/0 seems to be a good size. I'm going to use some black thread, and just like the Hopedale crab, we're going to come in, maybe one hook eye length away from the front of the hook behind the eye. We're going to create a little bump in there. I do this every time I use dumbbell eyes because it really helps hold the eyes in place. I'll come back behind that just to pinch and add another little bump of thread. And what this does, it creates a cradle for the eyes to sit in. Without this cradle in there, then the eyes tend to move forward or backward. They don't stay in where you want them. So I'm going to use some medium dumbbell eyes. These are Montana Fly Company sparkle eyes, and I like them because of the sparkle and also the color. At any rate, we're going to use the midnight blue sparkle eyes in size medium. So we'll lay that on top, and we'll take a couple of wraps on one direction, a couple of wraps in the other direction, and then we'll keep wrapping, some one way, some the other way. What we're trying to do is to make sure those eyes sit exactly perpendicular to the hook. All right, so we've got, if you also notice, the eyes now are canted in one direction, so we want to straighten that out by wrapping the thread in the other direction. So we'll take some wraps here, and that, you see, moves them around so they're now perpendicular to the hook shank. So we'll continue making those cross wraps both directions and check, make sure they are maintaining the fly in a perpendicular location. We get it when we want it. Then we're going to wrap under the eyes and over the hook, under the eyes and over the hook. What this does is it puts pressure on the side of the thread and locks those dumbbell eyes into position. Okay. Now for a little extra assurance, we'll take some Zap-A-Gap super glue, essentially. Very thin super glue, and we're going to give it a little dab on top and a little dab on the bottom. That'll make sure these eyes don't spin on the hook. Okay, now take the thread all the way back to the base of the tail, and on these Gamakatsu stinger hooks, you get to the base of the tail, or base of the hook, where it just starts to bend, like right there. That's about maybe halfway between the barb of the hook and the point. Go a little bit further. Okay. Now it's time for the tail. So we're going to use some saddle hackle, and I want to take like 4 saddle hackles that are about the same webbiness. So I'm looking for some like that. We want 4 of them. There's a couple. And here's another good one. We're doing this in a purple and black color scheme, which is exactly what I showed you with the Hopedale crab, and that was probably the best, most successful color combination we had last year. Okay, so what I want to do is to align these so they get 2 on each side, and I want them splayed outward. So I want 2 of them that are going to be moving away from the hook towards me, and 2 of them that we're going to put on so they splay away from me. And I can get those lined up so they are the same length, just like that. And that's where we want to put them on the hook. So I'm going to make sure to get the stems pretty close to alignment there. And then we're going to cut off the stems. We'll establish our length. I want the tail to be about twice as long as the hook. That looks about right. Mark that with our fingers and trim off, cut off the part we don't want. Now we've got a little bit of fluff up here. We can pull that off so it's not in our way. Get rid of that. Now you can tie these 1 at a time or 2 at a time, like 2 on each side of the hook, but what I found works out just pretty well if you get them all pinched in your fingers and set those on top of the hook with a couple on one side and a couple on the other, and then take a couple of wraps and check them. And you can adjust these things a little bit, pull up on them or push down on them. Okay, so now if you notice, we've got 2 on one side, 2 on the other, splaying in different directions. Okay, that's where we want them. So we'll take a little pinch to hold them in place and finish lashing them down with our thread. Okay, that looks good. Okay, next we're going to put in some flash that'll lie next to the tail. We're going to use some purple crystal flash. And we'll take, I don't know, half a dozen strands of crystal flash or so, snip that off, and then wrap that around the thread. Make sure we've got the same amount on each side of the thread. That's pretty close. And we're going to tie it down on one side. Okay, then take half of that bundle and tie it down on the other side. We want the flash to run down the side of those saddle hackles. Okay, now we can take all those saddle hackles and we're going to trim them, oh, maybe 3/4 the length of the tail. There we go. You can probably leave those things long if you wanted to. Uncut, it wouldn't make that much difference. And once you get them on there, you can align them. They need to move a little bit to make sure they're on the side of the saddle hackles. These things are kind of wiggly. Okay. That's good. That's good enough for who it's for. All right, now the next material is a really cool material that I just kind of discovered. It is a 3-inch UV sparkle brush. It's some EP fibers, Emerald Pegasi, however you pronounce his name. At any rate, these are great fibers. This is a 3-inch brush, which looks like those fibers are going to be awful long, but we're going to control those a little bit. So what we'll do, we've got this extra wire here. We want to trim that down a little bit before we start our tie. And never use your tying scissors for this. You'll ruin your tying scissors. So always use some snips of some sort. And I've got some lineman shears here that I use as wire snips. Now it's ready to tie in. Bring our thread up beyond where we tied in the tail, and we want to raise this brush up and make it perpendicular, the fibers perpendicular to the hook, and then stroke the fibers back as much as you can and start wrapping. It's going to take a half a dozen wraps to achieve what we want to. And you're going to trap some fibers, but we can free those up here in just a minute. Stroke them all back. What we're building here is a collar of flash that's really going to light up in the water. One more. Okay, now we can tie that down. Sneak in there with our snips. Cut the brush. If we do this right, we can get 3 or 4 flies out of one brush. And that's important because these things are expensive, so you want to get the most out of them. Okay, and there's a little wire where we cut off the wire. There's a little stub of wire that's sharp, so we don't want to catch that with the thread because it'll pop the thread. So we're going to bend it over with a thumbnail and then stroke all of those fibers off that sparkle brush back towards the back. You're going to miss a few of them, but it's okay. When you hold them back with your thumb and your fingers and wrap back over them. And this causes them to lay back along the side of those saddle hackles and creates a really nice collar, uniform collar. And you can take, at this point, your bodkin and free up any trapped fibers that you've got. There we go. Okay, we'll take a few more wraps to make sure those are all secured and pointed backward. Now it's time for some legs. What I've been using when I can find it is some Montana Fly Company. They call this Sexy Floss, and it is really sexy. It's not quite as stretchy as rubber legs, but you can use rubber legs, that'd be fine. But we'll pull out 2 of these, and we're going to wrap them around our thread and get them about even on both sides, then tie them down on one side, just like we did with our flash, and then take half of that bundle or half of that pair over to the other side and lash it down. Okay, we can pull all those up and trim those off just a little bit shorter than we had the crystal flash. There. We got 2 legs on each side of the fly. Now we can clean up that knot of sexy floss that we made. Wrap over that with some thread, mash it down a little bit. Okay. The next and really the last material is some 1.5 inch foxy brush, EP foxy brush. I've got a leftover section here that I'm going to use on this fly in a black, and we're going to tie that in back here. Bring our thread up and just in front of the eyes. Okay. Again, the brush needs to be turned so it's perpendicular to the hook shank, and we're going to start wrapping the brush with kind of open spirals. We don't need these to be touching because that material is going to fold back, and we're going to help it fold back as we wrap it. And with this stuff, you are going to trap some fibers. It will be necessary to free those up here in a little bit. Okay. When you get up to the eyes, you really want to make sure you have one wrap that's directly behind the eyes like that. Now, I want to come up and across the eyes and over in front. What this does, like I mentioned with the Hopedale crab, by having a wrap or two in front of the eyes, it helps cushion the fall of the fly so that it does not slap the water and spook the redfish. Okay, so now we can tie off the foxy brush. This looks like a mess right now, but we're going to tame that a little bit. And we can reach in with our snips and snip our wire. Push the wire back with our thumbnail, then stroke the fibers rearward and tie the brush in. We've got some fibers that are poking out the front that we didn't capture, but we're going to trim those out. Okay, now we can whip finish. Snip off our thread. Now we can take our bodkin and go in and free up any of those trapped fibers. Makes everything just, all those fibers just stand out from the hook. And that's okay. All right, now let's trim out some of those fibers that escaped us around the eye. Not that it really hurts anything, but just makes the fly look neater to trim them out. And then take some Sally Hansen's. What'd I do with it? There it is. Sally Hansen's hard as nails. If I didn't mention this before, this stuff is great for using as a head cement because it's really, really hard and works just fine. And you can, it's cheap. You can buy it at the beauty shop. But it kind of has become a fly tying standard. Dab that in there as best we can on our little thread head. Then it needs some hairstyling, so we're going to take a brush. I just use an old toothbrush. Don't get your wife's toothbrush out of the bathroom and do this, then put it back in her toothbrush holder. It will not make you popular. That's the voice of experience. Okay, so now we have this fly that's similar to the Hopedale crab, but it's not a Hopedale crab. It's got these other features, but it's a really cool fly, and I think it's going to really mug the redfish. And we don't have a name for this fly yet. It ought to be called something different than the Hopedale Crab 2. How about we call it the Redfish Mugger and see if that sticks. The Redfish Mugger. Give that a try.